My name is Srinivasan. I am a professional Scrum trainer with Scrum.org and a certified Scrum trainer with Scrum Alliance. I'm here today with Dave West, CEO and product owner for Scrum.org. Dave, good afternoon.
Hey, thanks for coming out here and asking me some questions, I guess.
Yeah, thank you for your time. I know you're really very busy, and we'll just kind of have a small conversation, and I want to kind of interview you and ask you a few questions and see where we're heading in that.
No problem at all. I'll do my best to answer them. There's no bad questions, hey? It's just bad answers. So.
Thank you, Dave. So, Dave, just to kind of help people understand your background, how did you end up getting to this place, and how did you end up? What's your story?
I guess I don't need these glasses. I was going to do some reading. Okay, so a little bit about me. So I started, Scrum.org, I've been here 4 years, though I've known Ken for, I guess, like 17, something like that,
Wow.
18, a long time. In fact, I think I met him first when I was the RUP product manager. So I was the Rational Unified Process and product manager. And as much as I really enjoyed that job and learnt a lot, it was funny, I learned that perhaps I wasn't actually helping people deliver fabulous products. So I changed from that. So I was the RUP product manager for a number of years. Then I went to work with Ivar Jakobsen. So so the guy that invented use cases, awesome, super smart geezer, and help him run his organization. I ran the North America part of his organization. Then I became an analyst at Forrester because I didn't want the challenge of running an organization. So I ended up being the research director of application development there. Then I did a startup. And then I'm here. But what's interesting is throughout that time, Ken had sort of been a mentor of mine. It was funny, when I was at the startup, we met on a lot more regular basis. There were periods where we didn't meet, and then we'd meet frequently, and then we wouldn't meet. And during the startup time, we worked quite a lot together. Wow, we met for breakfast quite a lot. And he gave me advice of how to build an engineering organization, and which I completely ignored, it turns out. And then he kept telling me, didn't you listen to me last time? And it was a bit like, I always picture, like when I guess Return of the Jedi, when Luke goes to the world where Yoda is. I always felt that my breakfasts were a bit like that, I would say something like, hey, I just don't understand how we can get everybody to be as productive as one of these really good developers. And he would say something very insightful around, well, maybe you've not actually talked to them about what it means, or something ridiculously simple. And I go, I can't be like that. Anyway, and we'd end up and we'd try it, and it was really good. And then I guess Ken was interviewing me throughout these conversations, and he said, "Hey, want to come to Scrum.org?" And it's funny. So when I was, I know it's a very long answer, and I apologise.
Okay.
This is sort of
it's interesting. I like it.
I'm sure nobody else does. Yeah. Okay. So I apologise. You probably want to not listen at home, but it was interesting. So when I was like, I don't want to come to Scrum. I did the RUP thing. Agile. I was a startup guy. I mean, building software. I don't care about process. Even though, interestingly, we were using Scrum. Very, very much so using Scrum. It was interesting. I came here. And I spent a little bit of time learning a little bit about more the community. So I did a few community calls whilst I wasn't really working here, but I was just listening in. I spoke to a few professional Scrum trainers, and I realised what an amazing group of people was here, and what a great opportunity that we had. And I thought I could bring a few things, like my experiences. I'm very product centric, so that my product ownership experience, my relationships in the industry, and I think I could help Scrum.org execute on its mission a little bit better.
Yeah, and Ken offers you a position, you just can't say no.
There is a bit of that. He's incredibly persistent. Perhaps that's the reason why Scrum's practiced by millions of people throughout the world. He doesn't really like the word no. So it was a little, maybe that's the real reason why I'm here.
Yeah, wonderful. What are some of the trends and patterns you're seeing out there in the industry today, based on like your experience, what you see out there, based on trainers' feedback, industry feedback, and things like that?
It's funny. So the last 4 years, and we're just coming up to the 4-year anniversary. It was October the 1st I started 4 years ago. Over the last 4 years, it's been pretty interesting, because what we've seen is a couple of trends. Obviously, scaling continues to be the topic du jour. Everybody wants to be agile.
Yep.
Everybody wants to take their one Scrum team and make it a million, you know, without using cloning. And though maybe they are, I don't know. I have no idea what they're doing. But what's interesting is that scaling continues to be a significant challenge. And there's a lot of different points of view around scaling. You know, people say, "Oh, well, you must be anti-safe. You're Scrum.org. You wrote a book on Nexus." No, I'm not really. I think SAFe has some really good ideas in it. I think it makes some decisions for you that I'm not sure you're explicitly making. The same's true of LESS, the same's true of DAD, the same's true of Nexus. What I really think is super interesting is that we need to be having more intelligent debates about scaling. You know, should we adopt the Spotify model? I mean, everybody is adopting the Spotify model. I mean, that's something that we're seeing a lot of now. But is that the right thing for you? What's the Spotify model? What's the essence of the Spotify model? Why does PI planning work? Does it actually allow you to be as agile as you want to be? Where does the customer, how do you align your business? How do you measure all of this? Hopefully that's universal immaterial of your framework. So scaling, I think over the last 4 years has got definitely more is even more popular, but I'm seeing a lot more intelligent conversations. It's funny. You know, obviously SAFe has a fantastic commercial model around it, and that, you know, all praise to Dean and his team. They've done a fantastic job there, and his partners. What's interesting is Nexus hasn't really, because oops, and you could blame me for that. But what's great is Nexus is being practiced, but that's not instead of SAFe. That's like, okay, we've got a few teams, let's use some of the ideas of Nexus to help us actually work on a day-to-day basis whilst doing PI planning and some of the portfolio level work that SAFe provides, whilst using some of the ideas of LESS for, you know, value management. And, you know, if you look at organizations, they're increasingly doing that, and that's really good. I think that's what we need to be doing.
So the funny thing you mentioned, Spotify, I remember Jeff Sutherland sometime back saying, Spotify doesn't use Spotify's scaling model anymore. And yet when I was talking with the CFO sometime back, he was actually calling some big consulting firm, and they were selling Spotify model like hotcakes. You know, so
and by the way, that's not, I mean, obviously, that's not a bad thing necessarily. I think that, you know, change, if directed, even if it's got the wrong name in that particular example, change is good if you're making intelligent decisions about the things that you're changing. Ultimately, our mission at Scrum.org is to improve the profession, right? Our ultimate mission is to help people deal with complex problems. And that's really what the essence of all of these things are trying to do. Now, as you scale, complexity scales, but also the challenge is, it's hard to break problems down at scale. And so those dependencies ultimately undermine your ability to be agile. So what do? You know, Spotify uses the tribe model to try to build a cohesive group of people that have a clear purpose, a clear direction. They own this part of the customer value chain or whatever. You know, the idea of squads is to break it down into manageable, consumable things. All of these things make total sense. The decoupling of work management from people management or skills management or talent. Those things are really awesome. But the question you've got is, if you're in an organization that's been around for 300 years, your systems and your applications are so complicated. You can't it's hard to find discrete elements of value. Does that model fit? Maybe not. I don't know.
I call this like the Cargo Cult Agile adoption. You know? So everybody is just copying, and they assume that since it's worked for some other organization, it also has to work for them, rather than starting from the principles and the values.
And what's interesting about that, obviously Cargo Cult, for people that are on the online, there's a really interesting book called that's Guns, Germs and Steel. I think I first read that thing, where it talks about this. There was this island that had loads of stuff being delivered, and they were like, oh my god, there's a plane landing. So they built a pretend runway, I think this was Midway or something, and the Americans were landing over on this island, so they built this pretend runway, tried to do exactly the same, and they were hoped the planes were going to land there, and they didn't. And you're like, oh, that's interesting. I think it must have been very disappointing, but and kind of sad, really. But anyway,
So talking about some of the trends you're seeing, Scrum.org also launched a couple of new courses: PSM-II, PSU, PSK, PAL-E. Tell us a little bit more about those things, and what is the demand or what is the need for that to launch those courses?
So a couple of things. So let's talk about leadership for a second. That's obviously an important point. So leadership is interesting because that's what the PALI, Professional Agile Leadership Essentials, it's the sort of start of the leadership curriculum. What we found over and over again with most of our Scrum teams was the challenge that they were facing was the environment they were working in. And what we were very focused on, or we tried to be focused on, was creating an environment, and that's what the PALI is all about, that allows, encourages, supports, doesn't get in the way of Scrum teams. So PAL's all about creating that environment, and we're continuing to extend that work, and you'll see lots more being written about it. We're adding to our PST track the ability to come in as a leadership coach and trainer, so to try to add some diversity of thought. So that PAL was very much focused on that. PSK and PSU are a little bit different. PSK was, I realized when you saw really good Scrum implementations, they were doing Kanban, and really good Kanban implementations doing Scrum. They might not use the right words, but they were. The benefits of things like community flow, the work in progress, WIP limits, all those things that Kanban provides really augment Scrum. The other thing that's really, really important is that the ideas of a product owner, the ideas of a sprint, in this cadence, planning, review, retrospective, dailies, all of the roles can help Kanban be more successful. So PSK very much is teaching Scrum teams how to use Kanban effectively. And we're fortunate to work with Daniel Vacanti and Yuval Yvet, who are very good Kanban practitioners who are brought into our community. And even though sometimes they can challenge some of our ideas,
conventionally held,
the challenging is an incredibly positive thing because we all learn, right?
Yes, exactly.
As long as we do it in a respectful way, so Twitter sphere notwithstanding, as long as we do it when we're being kind, we can challenge. And PSU obviously is similar. We brought, design thinking and the ideas of user experience are fundamental to building great products, to building great, value, and we wanted to bring that into our community. We worked with Jeff and Josh, who are the lean UX guys, awesome guys that have brought some fabulous thoughts into our community. And then PSM-II was really aimed at the fact that we've got now a lot of Scrum Masters out there. We've got. I just noticed that we're over 250,000 PSM-I certified people, like 250, 260, 1,000, and I was like, these people need some help, right? Some of these people need some extended stuff, and what's great about PSM-II is we've tried a different style of learning using liberating structures. Barry and Christian from the Liberators in the Netherlands brought in this very differently facilitated learning experience. That's a bit of an experiment as well. A lot of fun.
I hear that it is initially all from to the back of the room and experiential. And
there isn't. I mean, there are slides supporting it, but you don't actually look at the slides in the class. You kind of have those as a workbook that you can take away with you. What's interesting about the class is it's really just people learning from each other, obviously directed in a certain way, very focused on learning objectives, and obviously validated with PSM-II, the exam. But it's really interesting. Anyway, so they're some of the things we've been doing.
I know you're having a few other things coming up too, and so I'll definitely look forward to some of the new things that Scrum.org would be going forward with. Going back to leadership, one of the things that you mentioned was the leader's challenge and kind of transitioning from a traditional command and control organization to that of an agile organization. And what are some of the challenges that you see that the leaders are going through, and how have successful leaders overcome those challenges?
It's hard, and it's hard for lots of reasons. It's hard for like the sort of classic reasons. One, you've spent your whole life learning to be a leader, doing jobs really well, incrementally, sort of like getting better. Then you get promoted. You're promoted because you know everything about the job, and then you're told, "Hang on a minute, you're not to tell anybody what to do. We're doing servant leadership here. It's self-organization. It's like you're like, what the heck?" So it's challenging. I think we have to accept that. The other thing that's really challenging about being a leader particularly middle management, less so for executive leaders, but middle management are in this really nasty friction point between what you describe as agile teams doing things in quite a different way, hopefully aligning to value in a more effective way, and the traditional organization. So access to capital, for instance, is a really, really interesting example. You know, the reality is that budgeting and funding is being done in a very traditional way, in a very industrial sort of way. And so you've got these friction points, you know, risk adherence, you know, yeah, we want you to do agile, but hang on a minute, we don't want you to deliver stuff early because we don't want people seeing it until it's ready. You're like, well, how am I going to learn? You know, you've got these very different, and the middle managers are in the way, in the real sort of like the friction point. And what our PAL-E teaches these middle managers is how to deal with that. You know, how do you create an environment that sustains your teams while surviving in a traditional organization? What are some of the tips and tricks? You know, what does servant leadership really mean? How do you don't just say, I mean, it's like I have 2 small children around, and the last thing you ever want to do with 2 small children is give them complete freedom. However, if you want them to learn, you kind of have to give them freedom. But you don't want them to kill themselves or kill others or break important, valuable things like your flat screen TV. Actually, just the TV. Actually, everything else I could survive. But so how do you actually, you know, where do you draw those boundaries? And obviously, there's some techniques. Delegation poker is a great technique, and really just providing that sort of transparency around the team to create that. And then what about reviews, and how about reporting structures, and how do you do compensation, and how do you do incentives, and there's a whole million of things that are sort of in the way. But I have the belief, which might be wrong, that if you just give the leaders these questions, if you just equip them with some examples of ways that have been done before, and give them the support, they can be incredibly successful.
Yes, they do have a lot of tacit knowledge about the organization, and we got to really ensure that they're able to use that towards helping the teams become better teams.
Exactly. And what I hate is when agile consultants go and they say, well, this is agile now, I'll have to get rid of all your middle management. No, you don't. That's where your knowledge lives. You need to point it in we would argue, a little bit more effective direction. But they already know that as well, by the way. And that's so frustrating.
I mean, respect for people is fundamentally there in Scrum and lean thinking. And if you're really using people like resources and fire them when you no longer need them, that's not respectful. Definitely can channel that energy towards helping them, helping the managers help the teams be more successful.
And we've got some great tips on PAL-E, but also, I mean, there's lots of great stuff around that helps you do that today. I guess it's kind of trying to be a learner and a coach and a facilitator, and thinking about some of those things. It's not easy though. I take my hat off to these people. They're living in very changeable times. And as a middle manager, challenging.
I mean, I took the course some time back. I really loved it. It was a great course.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I created the initial first version of that course. It was awful when I did it. And now, but the best way of making our professional Scrum trainer community actually improve something is to give them something. That increment idea is actually pretty good. So you give them something, they go, oh, that's horrible. And then you get loads of feedback, which improves it incrementally.
So you kind of did an MVP for that.
That's exactly what we did. It was the only way to sort of kickstart the work, which is a sort of interesting thing unto itself.
So going back to Scrum Masters, what are some of the challenges you are seeing that Scrum Masters are encountering today, given that Agile and Scrum has actually transitioned over and kind of is early majority and late majority adopting at this point in time?
Well, I mean, I think, what's interesting is the more we engage with Scrum Masters, the more we realize that they don't necessarily have the support of their organization. The organizations really know what they're meant to do. The team sort of treats them in quite a weird way. They have a hard time positioning themselves. I mean, not all of them, but many of them. They become really just the team leader, the scribe, the meeting facilitator, all of that stuff. Those things are definitely plaguing our Scrum Master community. So one of the most important things that we've done over the last 2 years is create a definition of what the competencies and skills that a Scrum Master needs, or behaviors that they need. And that's on the website. You click on Scrum Master, you can see it.
Oh, yeah.
It talks about all those skills and really emphasizes the importance of certain things that they do on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, the pivotal work of the 8 stances of a Scrum Master is really changing the dialogue and the conversation.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. I'm just conscious that I don't want the screen to go black, and I'm worried that it will. I'm really conscious that we need to give them more, and so one of the programs that that isn't out yet is that we're trying to develop, and it's hard to do this, is to provide a more detailed learning journey for Scrum Masters, a really impactful set of things to help them be more successful. Yeah. And we'll continue to work on that until we've got it. We're experimenting. We have MVPs in market at the moment, which we're testing and getting data on. When we can get that stuff, I want to be able to help Scrum Masters, because it's funny, Ken says the Scrum Master is the most important role. Obviously I would say product owner, but he says Scrum Master because that is the change agent. That is the person driving the change at the team or the team of teams, or even at the organization level. Now you may call those an agile coach. I don't really care what you call them, but those people, whoever they are, whatever their titles are, we would call them Scrum Masters. Some of us would call them agile coaches. Some would just call them coaches. All those things that doesn't really matter. Change agent is crucial to our success.
Yeah. I found the Scrum Master learning path in the website pretty helpful, pretty detailed blogs, videos. Quite a podcast, quite a few things up there.
Yeah,
and if people haven't checked it out, probably they should check it out as well.
And it's free. Just click on it. It's all there. There's no money that needs to change hands. But the only thing I insist is you read everything.
Yeah. So we are almost at our 30-minute mark here. Are there any last few things that you would like to share with people who are watching our video?
No. I just don't get bogged down in the dogma. Focus on the outcomes. Focus on helping people deliver better and valuable products to customers. It's funny when Ken says, how you doing? And I say, oh, it's good. And I go on about all the things we're doing. He goes, well, hang on a minute. How are you measuring success? I was like, well, how should we measure success? He goes, how many people are delivering more valuable products than they were? I was like, okay, meaning delivering more business value or whatever. And how happy are they? I was like, oh, yeah. Ultimately, that's at the end of the day what we're trying to do. If we can do those two things, then I'm happy, and that's the mission of this organisation. So thanks for asking me the questions, and feel free to reach out to me, everybody online, and we're here to help. Thanks, Ram.
Dave, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Have a good day.